The subject of this video is the natural features that make places unique. Every place has its own character depending on its environment. Our environment is a blend of our natural surroundings and those things that we add to it.
What are some of the natural highlights of the United States and Canada?
First, let's visit the spectacular Grand Canyon. Located in northwestern Arizona, the Grand Canyon was carved by the action of the Colorado River and other factors of erosion for over millions of years. Over 100 miles of this gigantic gorge is inside the Grand Canyon National Park, which was created in 1919. Some places in the canyon are over 1 mile deep and 4 to 18 miles wide. The walls show us various types of rocks: sandstone, lava, limestone, and others. During the day, the walls seem to change colors, which can be viewed from either the south or the north rim. Another unique place to visit in the western part of the United States is Devil's Tower National Monument. This magnificent tower is in northeastern Wyoming and became the first national monument in the United States in 1906. This rock column has an approximate base of 1,000 feet, and its height is a little over 850 feet. It probably is what is left of an extinct volcano. The Indians in the region believe that the rock columns on its sides were created by the claws of a bear who tried to reach the top. If you visit this monument, be content to wander around its base, because there is no way to get to the top on foot. The next place we will visit is the Everglades, a marshlands region in southern Florida. Originally, the Everglades covered all of South Florida, from Lake Okeechobee to the Gulf of Mexico. The northern part of the glades are now used for farming, but much of the southern part has been preserved as a national park. If you visit the Everglades, you will see vast areas of sawgrass and scattered hammocks of various types of trees, including cypress, pine, and mangrove. The Everglades also supports an abundant amount of wildlife, such as alligators, herons, and ibis, or one of the many other types of birds that call the Everglades their home. Let's now travel to Niagara Falls. The falls are located on the Niagara River, just north of Lake Erie. They lie between Ontario, Canada, and western New York State. The falls were formed about 10,000 to 12,000 years ago, after the last glaciers in this area retreated and allowed water to flow from Lake Erie to Lake Ontario. There are actually two sets of waterfalls: Horseshoe Falls on the Canadian side and American Falls on the U.S. side, and they are separated by Goat Island. Not only are the falls a major tourist attraction, they also provide electric power for the regions on both sides of the falls. As we travel to the western region of Canada, we can visit the magnificent Canadian Rockies. Found mainly in the provinces of Alberta and British Columbia, these mountains are an extension of the Rocky Mountains found in the United States. Created by geologic forces that folded and buckled the land, this region extends about 1,000 miles north of the U.S.-Canadian border. The Front Range, as the Canadian Rockies are sometimes called, is considered by many to be the most spectacular of the entire system.
What are some of the natural highlights of Latin America?
Next, we travel to the southeast, to the Amazon rainforest. This tropical rainforest is larger in size than Western Europe and is home to many plants and animals. Some experts estimate that 1/5 of all the world's plant and animal species live in this region. Unfortunately, each year over 70,000 square miles of this rainforest are cleared for farming and mining interests. This destruction of the rainforest is contributing to the extinction of these plants and animals every year. The last scenic wonder that we will look at in Latin America is the Amazon River. This mighty river begins in the Andes Mountains in Peru and travels almost 4,100 miles to empty into the Atlantic Ocean. Even though it is not the longest river on Earth, it holds the distinction of being the largest, carrying about 20% of the world's total freshwater discharge to the oceans.
What are some of the natural highlights of Western Europe?
One of the best-known features in this region of the world is the Rock of Gibraltar. It stands guard over the narrow body of water that connects the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea. It is actually a high ridge of limestone and shale that rises almost 1,400 feet above sea level. Steep cliffs can be found on its northern and eastern sides. The other two sides have a more gradual slope that includes a series of terraces. Both the Rock and the city of Gibraltar have been a territory of the United Kingdom since the early 1700s. It has been the United Kingdom's chief naval base on the way to the Suez Canal. If we travel northeastward toward the Alps, we will see the Matterhorn, the third highest mountain peak in Europe, outside of Russia. Called Mount Cervin in French and Monte Cervino in Italian, it is located on the border between Italy and Switzerland in the Pennine Alpine range. The Matterhorn is about 14,700 feet high and has steep cliffs which have made it very hard to climb. In fact, many have died while trying to reach its summit. The first group to ever reach the top was led by a British explorer, Edward Whymper, in 1865. Today, skiing is very popular on the nearby mountains. Next, we'll visit northwestern Scotland, where there's a long, narrow freshwater lake called Loch Ness. It runs approximately 23 miles along the Great Glen and is about 1 mile wide. Loch Ness is part of a series of canals and lakes that are called the Caledonian Canal Waterway System. This lake is well known for sightings of a monster, affectionately named Nessie. This creature, supposedly either a dinosaur-like reptile or something similar to a manatee or seal, has been reported to be between 30 and 50 feet long. Many scientific expeditions have been launched to try to prove this creature's existence, but to no avail. Sightings of Nessie have increased since the 1930s, when a highway around the shore of the loch made this area more accessible to tourists and residents of this region. One of the spectacular features of the European region called Scandinavia are the fjords of Norway. These are long, narrow inlets of the Norwegian Sea that cut into the coast of western Norway. Most of the fjords have steep walls that rise high above sea level. Geologists believe that these were first cut by the erosive action of the rivers flowing to the coast, and then deepened by glaciers millions of years ago. Most of the fjords have magnificent waterfalls that delight passengers on the cruise ships that tour the coastal region. These types of inlets can also be found in other places, but the ones found in Norway are the most well-known.
What are some of the natural highlights of Central Europe?
Moving south to the Carpathian mountain range, Europe's second most important mountain barrier, we can see that the Carpathian Mountains are shaped like a large crescent or half-moon. They extend about 900 miles, from Slovakia to the west to Romania in the east. Located between Europe and Asia, we find the world's largest inland body of water, the Caspian Sea. It is surrounded by Russia, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, and Iran. Several rivers feed into this body of water, the largest being the Volga River. But the Caspian Sea has no outlet. It also is extremely saline because of its high rate of evaporation. It is about 750 miles long and 200 miles wide. It is considered important as an inland water route in this region of the world. Another unique physical feature of Russia is Lake Baikal. It is the world's deepest and possibly oldest lake. It is over a mile deep and was created over 20 million years ago. Lake Baikal is about 390 miles long and ranges from 20 to 50 miles wide. It has more fresh water than all of North America's Great Lakes combined. It contains about 20% of all the liquid freshwater resources in the world. Many plant and animal species can be found in and around the lake. Some of these include the Baikal seal, Siberian sturgeon, Omu salmon, and whitefish.
What are some of the natural highlights of Africa?
We move to the northeastern part of Africa. We can see one of Africa's most prominent physical features, the Nile River. It threads its way northward toward the Mediterranean Sea from the central part of East Africa. This is the longest river in the world, with an approximate distance of over 4,100 miles. Its southernmost source can be found in Burundi and empties into and emerges from Lake Victoria as the White or Mountain Nile. This river is joined by the Blue Nile, which begins in the highlands of Ethiopia, near Khartoum, the capital of Sudan. After it is joined by the Atbara River, the Nile continues on its journey and creates an S-bend route through the Nubian Desert in Sudan. Before it enters Lake Nasser, the Nile descends in elevation through a series of rapids near the border between Sudan and Egypt. As it nears the Mediterranean Sea, it fans out into a large delta region with two main distributaries, the Damietta and the Rosetta. A distributary is a branch of a river which flows away from the main stream and does not return to it. Also located in the eastern part of Africa is the Great Rift Valley. A rift valley is a long, narrow section of the Earth's crust that has fallen between two parallel series of faults. It appears as a long, flat-floored valley with steep sides. The Great Rift Valley extends from the Jordan Valley in southwest Asia southward into eastern Africa and ends near the mouth of the Zambezi River. Its length is estimated between 3,500 and 4,500 miles. If we travel southward, we will come to one of the most phenomenal waterfalls in the world, Victoria Falls, on the Zambezi River. Located between Zambia and Zimbabwe, this waterfall is about 5,500 feet wide and drops approximately 350 feet. It is almost twice as wide and twice as high as Niagara Falls in North America. Its African name means smoke that thunders, because the mist and spray created by the falls can be seen and heard from a long distance away. Several small islands divide the falls into 4 separate waterfalls or cataracts.
What are some of the natural highlights of Asia?
Let's start in Southwest Asia. Located between Israel and Jordan is a lake that is 7 times as salty as the oceans, the Dead Sea. The only river flowing into this body of water is the Jordan River. No river flows out of the Dead Sea. Because this region is extremely hot and there is very little rainfall, the evaporation rate here is very high. This results in the Dead Sea having a 25% salt content level. No fish can survive in the sea, and swimmers enjoy a high buoyancy rate. Dividing the Indian subcontinent from Central Asia are the Himalaya Mountains. They were formed about 40 million years ago, when the Indian subcontinent pushed northward against the Asian tectonic plate. Besides being the highest mountain range on the Earth's land surface, these mountains are also known for their large glaciers, deep river valleys, and rich vegetation. Mount Everest, the world's highest mountain, is located in this mountain range. Several major river systems originate in these mountains, including the Indus and the Brahmaputra. If you travel to Japan, to the largest of the Japanese islands, Honshu, you will see Mount Fuji, or Fujiyama, as the Japanese call it. Mount Fuji is a dormant volcano and is also the country's highest mountain. Its peak is often hidden by clouds. Its shape is nearly symmetrical, and it rises almost 12,400 feet from its base. Mount Fuji last erupted in the early 1700s.
What are some of the natural highlights of the South Pacific?
Off the northeast coast of Australia is the world's longest coral reef, the Great Barrier Reef. It is actually a series of coral reefs and islands that extend north and south for about 1,250 miles. Experts believe that this reef system began forming about 25 to 30 million years ago. Billions of living coral polyps can be found attached to the reef today. The incredible range and color of the coral, along with the many species of colorful fish that inhabit the reef, make the reef a popular tourist destination for skin divers and snorkelers. In Central Australia, another major physical feature can be found, Ayers Rock, called Uluru by the Aborigines, and considered a sacred place and a home for their ancestral gods. This large, massive sandstone rock dominates the plains around it. Besides being known for its shape and size, almost 6 miles around at its base, Ayers Rock has a dramatic ability to change colors as the light changes. It can be seen from 60 miles away. It is all that remains of a much larger mountain range that used to occupy this region. Our final scenic wonder of the Pacific region is Mount Waialeale on the Hawaiian island of Kauai, which is the wettest spot in the world. The eastern or windward sides of the Hawaiian Islands typically receive more rainfall than their western regions. The mountains and deep valleys even get more rain than coastal areas. With an average elevation of over 5,000 feet, Mount Waialeale receives approximately 460 inches of rainfall a year. During this video, we have visited just some of the unique places and landmarks that exist in the world. Nature and man have shaped or altered each of these regions going back hundreds, thousands, and even millions of years. We hope that someday you will be able to explore these places for yourself.